Well, everyone, the iPhone 16e has been out for almost a week now, and I wanted to go ahead and kind of make a little bit of a synopsis on how the iPhone 16e is holding up and seeing if it's still worth buying in any capacity right now. I've done a lot of comparisons against this phone. I just finished up a battery comparison, and I have some thoughts on this phone that, hype this phone up, but also might, throw some cons in your face about maybe why you shouldn't buy this iPhone. Now, first things first, if you want to pick up this phone or some other phones I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there, and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, one of the biggest things and one of the biggest takeaways when you're going through and buying a phone is you always want to see how it holds up on the outside against some of the competition. Now, the 16e, right, on the exterior and what this phone's supposed to be bringing, it's a mid-tier phone. It's not supposed to be competing with the ultra $1,000+ flagships, but it's also not supposed to be competing with like the $200 or $300 phones either. It's a $600 phone. This is not a cheap phone, right? This is fairly expensive. It's not as expensive as an iPhone 16 Pro, but it's not like an iPhone. It's not even like an iPhone SE. It's like more expensive than an iPhone SE. It's more like an iPhone 10 or iPhone 11 type of phone. Now, when I look at the outside of the iPhone 16e, this phone is giving us a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, this panel I have talked about a lot, but I don't really have a lot to hype up with this phone about with its display and with its exterior. This phone giving you like the notch in this day and age, I think is a very outdated type of layout. When we take a look at when Apple first debuted the notch, which was the iPhone 10 back in 2017, it made sense. Even the 11, 12, okay, makes sense. But then when Apple starts even still giving us this type of layout up until like this day and age, it is a very weird thing. When I take a look at even like a Samsung Galaxy A16 that Apple made or Samsung made a couple months ago, I look at that phone and that phone on the front kind of looks better than this phone. And even with the Galaxy A16, it costs like $200 something or something like that. That phone is even giving you a 90 Hz display. This phone is only giving you a 120 Hz display. So that right there is also another big disadvantage for that type of device. Because if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, well, that right there is going to be a really big disadvantage. And you might not notice it at first, but definitely when you use this phone over a period of time, you will definitely feel like this device is definitely not going to be giving you that good of, at least like a modern experience. And that is essentially kind of the downside you're going to be experiencing when you're going through and getting this type of phone. You're definitely going to feel like the outside of this thing feels outdated. And it's definitely not even that bright of a panel either. I think that one makes a lot of sense because it's an older type of, it's not supposed to be, it's basically replacing the 14 in a way. So it makes sense, but still it's very, very weird to see that type of layout inside of this phone anyways. So I would probably say from that side in and of itself, that is kind of the more important things that I've noticed about this phone too, is the exterior definitely feels a bit outdated when it kind of comes down to it. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to some other areas of this phone, one other thing you're going to have to keep in mind here is that with both of these devices, with the iPhone 16e, you are getting a USB Type-C port on the bottom, which is something I like seeing. I love having USB-C, and thank God we're getting that inside of this phone. The back side of this thing also looks pretty good. There's not really like an insane amount of things to hate on here, but the thing that I noticed with the iPhone 16e is the fact that with that single camera setup, you're definitely going to be feeling like you're in the situation where this type of phone really isn't going to be giving you this great of an experience. And this is another very interesting takeaway for this type of device too. Because if you're taking a look at something like an iPhone 16e, the thing with this phone, right, is that single camera setup you would imagine could have been giving you a little bit of a better experience. And this is something that I always think about, right? If I'm going to go through and pick up a phone, I always think to myself that, there could have been a little bit of a better experience here for the most part if they gave us multiple cameras, even just like an extra camera sensor. I think that would have, helped this phone out a lot. But I think that's another issue going on for this phone too. No MagSafe capability on this phone either. Like that's such a weird thing to miss out on this type of phone. Like why couldn't they just added it? And that's why I look at this phone and they watered it down in a lot of ways, right? It's better than some iPhones, but also worse than some other iPhones like that are older than it. The camera side though, it's not really a bad camera. It's basically almost the same exact camera that you're getting on an iPhone 16, like the standard iPhone 16, but just the standard wide angle camera. So you're not getting that ultra wide camera here. I think that's okay. I think it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I love basically having some sort of capability with that ultra wide camera. And the fact that this phone is missing out on that, it's kind of a big deal because, having a ultra wide camera is a pretty basic thing nowadays. And the fact that this phone doesn't have it is pretty crazy because you're already kind of missing out on a lot of cool things you could end up doing with some sort of ultra-wide camera. So I would probably tell you from that side too, that is kind of a pretty big disadvantage if you're going to go through and pick up this type of phone from that side as well. But the camera quality is pretty good. Like I said, it's pretty much in line with the iPhone 16 minus that ultra-wide camera. And I think this type of camera still looks really good, 4K at 60 on the front and the back, and visual intelligence. From that side, this camera does hold up pretty well. But from a lot of other sides, like I mentioned, there are a lot of areas where I look at this type of phone and I do kind of feel like Apple could have done a little bit of a better job with this camera, especially on a brand new iPhone. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, luckily this phone is giving us some really cool features built in anyways. It's still giving us things like emergency SOS satellite mode, crash detection. You can send messages via satellite too. So that kind of stuff is actually really nice to have inside of a phone. So I always like being able to go ahead and, buy a phone that's giving us that type of capability. So that right there is pretty cool. And I do like how the iPhone 16e is going to be supported with software for a long period of time. So it's not like this phone is going to be outdated tomorrow. This phone is going to be giving us software updates for many, many years now. So you're not really going to feel like this device is going to be missing out on anything or, that it's going to be like super lackluster in terms of software. Luckily, Apple with their, main lineup, with their SE or cheap lineup, whatever they made, at least they've always given us long software support. So I can't really fault them there. Weirdly enough though, on Apple's website, they stated that their battery life on this phone was going to last so much longer than an iPhone 16. But I just did a battery comparison yesterday, and the 16e only lasted marginally more than the iPhone 16. So from the test that I did in real world use it really wasn't lasting that much longer. So if you're planning on going through and buying this phone expecting it to be the longest lasting iPhone ever, it's not claimed to be, but it's barely going to last longer than an iPhone 16 from what I can tell. So that was kind of another surprising thing that I noticed as well. Finally, the performance. This iPhone's performance is very, very good. The Apple A18 chip with 8 gigs of RAM. The fact that you're getting Apple Intelligence inside of this phone is really cool, and it's going to be giving you a very, very solid experience. So definitely, if you're going to go through and pick up a phone, you can fault this phone for a lot of stuff, but you cannot fault this phone for the fact that it's going to be giving you that type of great performance and great type of capability. So I would probably tell you from that side in and of itself, that is kind of a really nice thing to basically have inside of this phone. So you can pick up this type of device and basically get the best type of performance that you can get from any phone out there, at least in terms of the iPhones. It's not the best performing iPhone of all time, but it is a really, really good performing iPhone. And that is something that I love about this phone. But when I kind of take a look at this particular iPhone, right, what I would probably tell you is that this iPhone is probably not an iPhone I'd recommend people to buy. And it's not because this thing is a bad phone or this thing doesn't look good or X, Y, and Z. It's just because of its price tag. For a brand new price of $599, I genuinely don't think this is a phone I would probably recommend anyone to buy, right? This one just doesn't make any sense to buy from that standpoint, but I think it makes a lot more sense to go and buy a phone that is going to be giving you a little bit more capability and it's going to be a better device overall. And I feel like from the price tag standpoint, you are much better off buying a phone that is basically still going to be supported with software. This thing's still supported with software, but it's going to be giving you basically a better capability for the price tag. And this phone, I think you could do better than this one, to be honest. I think if you spend maybe like $600 on an iPhone 15 Pro, that'd be way better than this thing. But this device is pretty much not there. I don't think I would recommend people to buy this. Buy something like an iPhone 15 Pro in the used market, or even a 14 Pro in the used market might be better than this one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.